name's Bonnie.
And I'm Caroline.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm Colette.
In part one of Kim's journey through breast cancer, we shared some staggering statistics of breast cancer in Canadian women. Kim shared how she discovered her cancer, the tests that she went through in preparation for her surgery, and the decisions she was forced to make along the way. We ended part one with her description of going through the first treatments of chemotherapy, and that's where we'll pick up her story today. Let's listen in.
So I had six treatments of that. And praise God, when I reflect back, yes, I had my stuff. Yes, it wasn't easy, but it could have been harder. Could have been a lot harder. I read my journal last night. I wanted it in my brain. Only once did I mention some nausea. Only once. I lost 40 pounds through this journey, not because I was vomiting, because I made some health decisions. I really got serious about my walking all through this when I was tired, because yes, I had fatigue, I had lethargy, my dizziness from my ear and the drugs and everything was so much worse. My endurance was impacted. So I'd go like an Energizer bunny and then crash because I don't do sick well. I don't want to be sick. No nausea, no vomiting. But I changed my diet. I did research, and I would encourage any woman to do that. There are all the specialists out there, but this is your body. These are your decisions to make. There are a lot of opinions out there. Experts have different opinions. But we can ask the Lord for wisdom for what's right for us. We can ask him for discernment, what's right for us. And I remember asking about diet, because I've always believed diet, what we eat is who we are and how well our body can function. And the response I got was, "Oh, that ship has sailed, dear. You can eat whatever you want." Was not the answer I was looking for. And it was interesting because I knew sugar feeds cancer. I knew that carbs equate to sugar. But I can tell you, when you sit in the cancer chemo clinic, they're serving you juice and cookies and sweets. And I could not understand that. So I had to buck the system a little bit. And I learned a few things along the way. The first day I went in, I went with a smoothie. I started doing a lot of smoothies, some supplements. I did a lot of research and went in with my smoothie and to sort of carry me through, because I had been doing a lot of intermittent fasting prior to this. But I thought going into chemo, my logical brain was telling me, oh, I'm going to be weakened. I might feel nauseous. I need to have something in my stomach. So on that day, I will take something with me. Out of my 6 treatments, that's the only one I did that with, because I learned afterwards, it was first the physician I had worked with that had recommended that fasting is actually a good thing when you're going through chemo. And he gave me some research articles to look at, and then I could find all kinds of things. And now I've heard it from several sources. So the next time I fasted that day, and then when I really learned about it, no, they say 24 to 48 hours before, during, and after kind of thing. So I would go for my chemo on Monday, and I started Sunday morning and went all the way till Monday at night, because it helps your body. It helps the chemo be more effective and target the bad, because the good cells kind of back off a bit because they're being starved, but the bad ones aren't, and they're getting attacked by the chemo. So it actually makes your chemo more effective, and it reduces side effects. So put some of those practical, scientific, research-based things together, combine that with a prayer team, no nausea, no vomiting. minimal side effects for those first 3. All my hair fell out by week 2. But I had my eyebrows and my eyelashes, and I was very pleased. I could put on my wig and do up my face. I refused to be the sick one. In reading my journal, I do say I had days where I needed to just sit a little bit more. I would do something, I needed to sit. You need to listen to your body and, not overtax yourself. But I certainly wanted to keep doing. And again, there's a battle in the mind. That's where the battlefield really is. So I would fix myself up and put on my wig. I didn't want any, and I'd go out for my walk. I didn't want people to know, when you see somebody that has no hair or is wearing a bandana, the first thing you think is, aw, they're going through cancer. We do that because it's been such a public thing for so long. And that's the picture of cancer. But I didn't want anybody doing that to me. I was out for my power walk and my Nordic poles because I had balance issues, but I didn't want to be the cancer patient. And I was saying before this, so I'll try to remember what I said. I really believe that for me anyway, and I think as women, and probably men too, they just won't admit it. When we feel we look good, we feel good, we're a little bit more confident, and we do our thing, right? And that seems foolish because who we are is not what we look like, one little iota. But certainly I thought if I looked like death and I felt like death, I would act like death and I would not live. And I needed to live. And I wanted to live life to the fullest. I wanted to be open about my story. I wanted to be an encourager through my story that if I can do this, you can do this. And we can do this together. And this is how I journeyed. I just wanted to be open about my story. And so I wanted to live life. And part of that was my wig and putting on makeup. And I had even false lashes because I was selling makeup at that time and they were doing magnetic lashes. And I thought, if I lose my lashes, I'll put on these magnetic ones and wear those. But I also started very early. I had scriptures all over with sticky notes all over my mirror in my bathroom so that when I got up, I would see that. And so I took a picture of it. So I would have things like, the mind governed by the spirit is life and peace. Romans 8, verse 6. I am loved. I am not forsaken. I know the plans I have for you to prosper and not to harm, a hope and a future. In Jeremiah. Think on these things: true, noble, respectable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, not the ugly things. Praise. I think that's a Kim version of it. You have not given me a spirit of fear, but of power and of might and soundness of mind. If the Lord holds your right hand, I say, fear not, I am the one who helps you. Isaiah 41:13. Fear is not your friend, so stop agreeing with it. I would look at this every morning. Cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you. And by his stripes I am healed. He is my peace. So I knew I needed to do battle of the mind. And again, it wasn't a once and done. It was got to do this regularly. And when does the enemy like to rise up? When you're alone, when you're tired, when you're hurting, nighttime. And oh, your mind goes crazy. Your mind goes crazy. So you need to have these things in your heart. You need to go discipline. You need to go back to it. You've got to put your mind on these things that are true and right and noble and good. and know who God is and stand on his character and believe in who he is, that he does not change. Even though the circumstances look ugly, he does not change and he is there. And I'd have to keep doing that and ask for help and ask for prayer. And different ones would send me words of encouragement. I started, Bonnie recommended this, use my iPad a bit more, start saving it, saving it, saving it. So I have a lovely little folder full of devotionals that would speak to me, scriptures that would speak to me, photos and memes and posters that would speak to me, a playlist, music that would speak to me so I could soak on that. I had two songs particularly that I clung to even early when I went for my biopsy. The song going through my head was called In Jesus' Name, because a friend had sent me that, a YouTube of that. And it was just coming out on the radio. In Jesus' Name by Katie Nichols. And it's a prayer. I speak the name of Jesus over you. In your hurting, in your sorrow, I will ask my God to move. I speak the name of Jesus because it's all that I can do. In desperation, I'll seek heaven and I'll pray this for you. I pray for your healing, that circumstances would change. I pray that the fear inside would flee in Jesus' name. I pray that a breakthrough would happen today. I pray miracles over your life in Jesus' name. And it goes on. And there's another one called I Speak Jesus with a similar message. And those two songs particularly, this is the one that was going through my head, singing it in my head while I was getting my biopsy. And it's a source of strength and encouragement and peace through the journey. So then I was going into my fourth cycle. I had started, I was feeling pretty good. You know, I'm halfway through this and I'm victorious and I feel good. First week wasn't so fun. They were 3-week cycles. Second week a little better. Third week, yay. Oh, I have missed some important details. First week, not so good. Yes. Day 8, I ended up in hospital. I had only just started. And God, this is day 8. How am I going to get to day 118? On day 8, I was in hospital. So they tell you to monitor your temperature throughout this process. And if your temperature gets to 38, it's straight to the ER. No messing around. And no taking any Tylenol because that will mask it. So if you start to feel unwell, don't take anything. Just keep taking your temperature every half an hour, every hour. And I had been doing all kinds of things that day. And then it started to just creep up. It was right at supper time, felt a little unwell, felt I was getting a bit of a temp. Next thing you knew, it was 38 degrees. My husband wasn't home that night. What was I going to do? I called my son. He took me into the ER. I was there till 11 p.m. Ken brought me supper at 8. I'm still sitting there and I was starting to feel better. That fever had dropped and I was getting angry. I thought I'd get special. I was told to always bring my med list with me. They'd know I was a cancer patient. This is pandemic time. The ER is a germ fest. And I knew that the medication I was taking would lower my immune system. So here I am sitting with all these people coughing, and I've been there now for hours. They gave you a different colored mask, so they knew you were special. But other than that, you were not treated any differently. And at 11 p.m., I was mad. I was so tired. I just wanted to go home to bed. And I kept getting up, I think 3 times, went to the counter and asked the lady, when am I being seen? Where am I on this list? I thought as a chemo patient that I was special and I didn't say that, that I would get pulled in a little bit quicker. And they would tell you to sit back down. And finally at 11, I got up and I said, okay, give me that form to sign that I leave against medical advice. I'm out of here. I'm going home to my bed. And she went to get the paper out and she looked at her computer and said, well, your blood work just came in. I suggest you sit back down. So I thought, okay, I'll wait a little bit longer. I finally got called into a back room. That was a step. At 2 a.m., I saw a doctor who just stood in the doorway for, I swear, less than 30 seconds and said, oh, yeah, you have a good infection. You're going on IV, and walked away. So I'm sitting in that room and got hooked up to an IV, and I spent 2 nights in an ER room there. It was the last room in the hall, right where the ambulance bay was. So in and out, ambulance full of people all night. Hooked up to an IV. During the daytime, I was actually on my iPad because I had a follow-up appointment with my oncologist to see how I had managed with my first dose. And I waited, and it was a Zoom call, waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. Didn't connect, didn't connect, didn't connect. And later in the day, she comes in to check on me, and I said, where were you? My Zoom call. She said, I never dreamt you'd be wanting to go on the Zoom call when you were in the ER. I said, well, I had an appointment. Anyway, she came in and said that I'd done all the right things, that yes, even though I had felt like that fever had broken and that I was fine, no, that I had a bacteria. They found it in the PICC line culture. They found it in my lung, and they found it in my blood. So, and it could be fatal. So you can become septic really fast. She said my neutrophils, my white blood cell count, my neutrophils were so low that I had no resources at all. She gave me it was like 0.0. It was so low. I had nothing to fight any bacteria. So I could have gone south very, very quickly. I was eventually admitted to a room. So I did learn some things. I needed to follow those rules, and thanks be to God that I did not walk out at 11 o'clock that night, and that I stuck it out and stayed there. When I looked at my journal, there were 3 more times where my fever started to go up. One was related to constipation. Just from the medication, you get constipated, your bowels start to block up. It triggered a fever. I started pushing when I finally clued in what could be the cause of this. I'm like 37.8. I'm pushing laxatives. I managed to keep it at bay. And another one, I think I was 37.9. And I went and had a shower. I know I took off my wig. I stood in front of a fan. I did not want to go to the ER. Got my temperature back down. Maybe I didn't totally learn my lesson. Anyway, it came back down, and I kept monitoring it, and I was fine. But I also called my prayer team. You know, I don't want to go to hospital. I have a temp that's rising, blah, blah, blah. So I was going into the last phase of my chemo, and Bonnie will attest that there was, through the journey, you know, you have your victories, you have your disappointments, you have your victories, and you have your disappointments. And I mentioned a few at the start. You know, you get your original diagnosis, then you get dumped something else, and then you get something else told on you that you were. I didn't say that I was told originally I would be able to kayak. When I went in, no problem, just be careful of your PICC line, cover it with a sleeve, keep it covered. The day I went in to get my PICC line, the day I started my chemo, that morning I went to get my PICC line, they said, you cannot paddle. You will dislodge this. Do you know how close that line is to your heart? You can't paddle. Well, I was devastated. I was devastated that I got a brand new kayak. I can't paddle all summer. It was like another something taken away from me. And the hair thing I meant to mention as well. Nobody told me your hair falling out was painful. It wasn't just emotionally painful, it hurt. So my first checkup with the oncologist after I lost my hair, I said to her, why didn't you tell me that my hair was when it fell out, was going to hurt? oh dear, yes, you get inflammation of the hair follicles, but only 15% of the people experience pain. Oh, ta-da, I was in the 15%. Oh my gosh, I ended up shaving my own head. I was in such pain. It was like any of you that have had long hair pulled in a ponytail for a long time, and you take it out and you've got that pain. It was like every follicle on my head had that sensation, and you'd run a comb, you couldn't, just moving it, and the hair would come out in your hand, and it hurt so much. So I went into the bathroom and locked the door, and I shaved my own head to about half an inch. And then, that still kept falling out, but it decreased the pain a little bit. But oh my gosh. Anyway, so information is helpful. I had also started setting some goals. I had said I wanted to live, not wallow through this experience. So I was starting to learn that week 1 might be challenging. Week 2, my immune system is starting to get better. By week 3, my immune system is pretty much back to where it should be. So that was good information for me to have, especially in a day of pandemic. It's very different to feel immunosuppressed and vulnerable. You look at people with a cough differently because you feel vulnerable. And after that hospital experience, I certainly felt vulnerable. So week 1, when I was at the worst, my village rallied again. And that stemmed from my workplace. There was somebody at work that decided they were going to start a Mealtrain, which I'd never heard of, and had all kinds of people sign up for this. The large majority were co-workers and staff members. And they brought a cooler and put it on my front porch. And every night there was a meal in that cooler for me. And they were going to do it right up to November, from June to November, every single day. And in the second week, when I was feeling better, I said, whoa, that's huge. Like, no, don't. Week 1, that's awesome. Week 2, because in week 1, somebody sent me a Good Food box or a HelloFresh box. So I was introduced to that. Okay, this is pretty cool. Learned that my husband could cook. If he could follow those recipes, he could actually do a box. So week 2, we started ordering a box. Week 3, I'm perfectly capable to cook. And so that's how I went through the rest of it. Week 1, I was well cared for. Week 2, we had a box, and Ken needed to rally up and cook those meals. And week 3, I could manage on my own. So yay to the village. And I was so touched that I had retired and left that workplace. And these people blessed me so much. And one girl said to me, you gave and gave and gave at work, and it's time for us to give back. We had relationship, and they came, and they wanted to be sure that me, a therapist, knew how to use my poles properly. And I did not use them well. I needed some instructions. I was told, don't do that alone the first time. It was really funny, but they rallied. I had somebody crocheted me a blanket because they thought that I would be cold during chemo. A group of sewers in the church gave me a quilt with verses all over it to keep me warm during chemo before I knew I was going to have chemo. I thought, what? God knew. The last 3 treatments of the FECD, the oncologist had said, you're through the worst. The first 3 are actually the worst. And I thought, that's funny, because everything I read was the last one that was the worst. I said that to her, and she said, no, that hasn't been my experience, but I can tell you my experience. The last one was the worst. It was a game changer. I still thank God, because that was the one side effect I don't like vomiting. I still had no nausea and vomiting. So thank you, Lord. But pain increased, fatigue increased, dizziness increased. The eyebrows fell out, the eyelashes fell out. I looked pale, I'd get flushed. All of a sudden, I looked like a chemo patient. I thought that's where it is. That's when you lose every bit of facial hair and any color in your face. Now you look like a chemo patient. They prescribed a nerve pill because I would have nerve pain. And yeah, jabs from the pelvis, groin, shooting down your legs, headache pain. But then I was having such extreme lethargy and dizziness and fatigue that I could hardly walk at all. I finally stopped the nerve. I was supposed to take it, I think, 10 days. I stopped it early, and I found the energy came back and the dizziness subsided. So I really didn't like the side effects of that. So I told her that next time round, I decided I was going to not take it. Well, I was 3, 4 days in. By day 3, it would hit you. And so I took it again because the pain was difficult. But again, just the lethargy and the fatigue. And when I would stop it, I could walk a distance. When I was on it, I couldn't. I remember one day, because I like to do things, right? I don't want to be sick. I sat on a stool out in the middle of my front yard because I wanted to get rid of some weeds. I'm out there pulling weeds. I was flushed. I was tired. I was sore. I'm pulling weeds. And then the last session, I just decided I wasn't taking that medication at all. I was just going to manage the pain. The other thing that I really started to suffer with was my skin started to flake quite a bit. I started to have a lot of numbness. My whole upper back and shoulder, and my face, like you could slap my face. I could hardly feel it. It was just I felt like a rubber chicken. And thrush. My mouth was awful. Just awful. So for pretty much the last 3 sessions, 3 weeks, 18, 3 times 3, 9 weeks. The last 9 weeks, I was on medication for fungal infection in my mouth. You had to rinse your mouth. I was doing that all the time right from the start. You were constantly doing this salt and baking soda water rinse to clean your mouth, clean your mouth, clean your mouth to prevent thrush. Didn't seem to do one bit with this last thing. So my tongue would kind of split. It was so white and gunky. Food didn't taste good. Lots of times you lose your appetite, but that's not me. I like to eat. So I was actually shoving more in my mouth because I wanted to taste something. So I'd go to my closet and I'd shove in prunes and I'd shove in nuts and I'd shove in crackers and I'd, find some fruit and I'd make a slush. I kept, this is ucky and this is ucky and this is ucky, but I kept eating. So I never did lose my appetite. But God was good through all of that. And there's an end in sight, right? There's an end goal, and there's a real time of victory when you finally get to ring that bell and do that happy dance and dance your it is it's a victory, and we need to celebrate those things. So that was the end of that, and I was starting the radiation journey. What I didn't mention was I did set goals through this right at the start. I decided in week 3, once I learned that in week 3, you feel pretty good. Because at the start, you don't really know what are you facing? It's a mystery, right? And everybody's different. But I started to learn that week 3 was good. So I started to decide that week 3, I was going to do something. And so I did that. I started making my own plans. And I booked trips, and we went to Muskoka and had a cruise on the Parry Sound River cruise. Early in the session, Bonnie and I went on a kayak and camping weekend, and she paddled me in a tandem kayak. That's a true friend. She paddled me a couple of times around the island, and we camped. When I went on the Muskoka cruise, my husband and I camped on the island. We did the Agawa Canyon in Sault Ste. Marie, and you get to the far end of that and you go for a good hike. I took my poles and I was tired, but I did that hike. I did a murder mystery day with my family. I had bought this murder mystery game at Christmas and then realized it was a big thing to do. Well, I spent a couple of weeks planning it, organizing it, sending out invites, and looking for costumes at Value Village. And we had an afternoon and evening of fun staged out at my daughter's house where we had a body in the basement, and I got all the decor for the Roaring Twenties and put on a playlist and assigned all of the roles and everything, and worked and the menu. I did all of that, and we had a blast. We had a blast, and it's now become an annual event. And what else the last one was the one I had to cancel. We were going to go to the Bally cranberry farm and squash cranberries and all the rest, and my son and daughter-in-law were going to come, and that right at the end I caught a cold, and they wouldn't admit you with any kind of cold symptoms at all, so that we had to cancel. Ken and I spent a weekend in Niagara on the lake and went to the Shaw Festival and toured around there, and we stayed in a B&B who's the woman there, her sister was going through chemotherapy, and she had a lot of questions for me about what I was experiencing and all the rest, and so I was able to share that. And yeah, there was something every 3 weeks to really look forward to. It was summertime. I love summer and I wanted to enjoy. So I'm not sitting here saying I had a horrible summer. I had an amazing summer. I was in my garden. I painted a fence thing to go around my gas tank with butterflies and things. I was out there. That was the day I caught the fever. I was painting in the afternoon. Night I caught a fever. I painted a huge painting for someone as a Christmas gift near the end of this season. I finished a book for my grandson. I've been writing a book for each of my grandchildren, and number 4, I have 7. Number 4's book was in process. I managed to finish his book and get it published and give it to him during this chemo journey. And the Lord had given me a vision before this just about how actually the vision was years ago at a women's meeting about how when we go through storms and difficult times and we feel like we're in our boat all alone, He is there. His hand is under that boat and He is steering you through the storm. I never forgot that vision. That's going back 30 years. And it would pop up every once in a while when I went through some life challenges. Well, it really popped up through this, and I decided it was time to paint it. So I painted that during this time. It was very cathartic and healing. And it's on my wall, and it'll remind me who is in control of the storm. And I had listened to a message came up on the radio about Jesus speaking to the storm. And I won't forget that either. That was during this time as well. And the preacher was saying, do you think that he just said, peace, be still? And everything was still. Because we have this serene view of Christ. No, he would have stood up with authority and yelled potentially at that storm and told it to be quiet and to settle. None of this peace, be still. So I started yelling at my circumstances and taking authority and speaking to that storm. So that was my chemo journey. I thought I've done the worst of it. Well, no. I was starting radiation. So I had 16 treatments of radiation, and that's going every day. So I went in to get tattooed. Thought that would be easy. That was one of the most emotional days, I can tell you. I went in for that tattoo and met another woman there who was going through the same thing. And they pulled me in, and I had my gown opening up at the front like it normally would, because everybody was examining your breast, right? And then a house coat over it. And the first thing they said to me was I had my gown on backwards. And there were three of them. There was a tech, a student, and well, two techs and a student. One was male, one was female, and the student. And they said, "You got your gown on backwards." And they whipped my gown off of me. And I'm standing there in the room naked from the waist up while they turned my gown around backwards because they want to be able to remove it easily when I get on the table. Took me over to the table and immediately took it off of me. So I'm just lying there on the table. And I think I said to them, like, okay, what was that all about? You were going to strip me naked anyway. So what was that little dance? And I felt humiliated and embarrassed because there were three of them, six sets of eyes gawking at you while they're putting these tattoos on. And I was freezing because they had a fan to cool down the machine. And I was an emotional mess that day. I walked out of that room and I was ready to burst into tears. And the other lady asked me how I was doing. The husband reached up to grab me because I was so dizzy. I stumbled out of the room. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. He helped me put my coat on and I took off and I cried all the way home. Who would have thunk that that would be a difficult day? But anyway, that was just leading into the radiation. So I did my 16 treatments. They go fairly quickly. You're told that you might get a sunburn and to be careful of your skin. And it was right at the very end that I started to feel raw. I needed an antibiotic cream. And when you're done and discharged and ring that bell and celebrate, well, then the burn got really bad after I had said bye-bye to everybody. And it was like a second-degree burn across my collarbone. And oh, it was raw and covered with crust, and had to nurse that for quite a while. But that took me through to the end of December and then on into Christmas. And you really think your journey is over. I did. But really it's just begun. So it's a diagnosis that you don't do when you're done. Typically, they tell you about recurrence and the risk of recurrence and options for that. I knew that I was going to be on an anti-estrogen pill. I didn't know there were a few options with that, but I did start that before Christmas, and it would come with some increased joint pain. It would bring on menopause all over again. The irony of taking hormone replacement therapy, which might have contributed to the cancer, to go back on an anti-estrogen drug to go through menopause again, and all that goes with that. And then propose. What I didn't expect was a proposal for two other treatments for an IV every 6 months for my bones, because the medication that lowers estrogen can cause bone density issues, and I was already sort of predisposed to that with some thinning bones and family history of that. And it also is to help prevent cancer getting into your bones. And then the last one was an oral medication, which I was told was not chemo. But when you researched it, it was a chemo drug, because then I got a call from the oral chemo nurse. Oh, it is chemo. Oh, and that drug comes with all the same side effects: mouth sores, hair loss, vomiting, and diarrhea. And diarrhea was an absolute. And I was actually already sent in the mail a whole bunch of Imodium to take for this drug because I thought I was going to take it. And I talked to an insurance company, and they would, the drug company and the insurance company, the drug company was going to pay for it if the insurance company didn't. And it was recommended it would give me that much more increased survival rate. And again, I thought I should do this, but this time From January to April, I flip-flopped. Yes, I'll do it. No, I won't. Yes, I'll do it. No, I won't. Until I think April, I had like an aha. If I am flip-flopping that much, this is not the decision. This is not the choice for me. And I finally made a decision. I am not taking that drug. I am going to trust God. I am going to do a good diet, continue to take care of my body. I started seeing a naturopath. I will see what they recommend. And I've since done some things that have been recommended there. But I am not going to continue to put chemotherapy drugs in my body. And the peace that came when I made that decision, I know I made the right decision. And does fear rise up, and do I worry about recurrence? I would be lying if I said it didn't. It does. And again, you just battle the mind and say, no, my God's got this. He's got me. He loves me no matter what happens. But I will say to him repeatedly, I don't want to do this again. Once is enough. Once is enough. And I think I just looked at the time. I think I have talked way too much, and I'm sure I've left stuff out, but that has been my journey.
Even though I've been through most of that journey with you, hearing it again, all encompassed in one.
Yeah. Reading the journal. It's amazing how time can erase some things, blur some things, change some things, because I really thought I didn't have hardly any side effects. And then I started reading, well, no, I did. I don't know if I minimize it or what, but I do know God was good. I have read so many people's stories since, and they can hardly get out of bed, can't walk any distance, and they're in so much pain, or they're vomiting so much and so sick. Thank the Lord, He was with me, and still is, and it just, even getting my hair back. I mean, there's a whole journey to that. You are a new creation, literally. You are not what you were. You became old overnight. There is gray hair there. There was curl there. No more hormones softening your skin. Your skin is dry. The wrinkles are showing up, and I felt like I remember screaming at the Lord, not screaming. Sometimes I do that, but saying, everybody else, not everybody, but you do that. Everybody else gets to gradually get used to this aging thing. No, I felt like I aged overnight. I went from a professional woman that dyed her hair, had good skin, to feeling like an old lady with wrinkles, and didn't really know who I was. And then how do you wean off of wearing that wig, and when do you do that? I actually decided 2023 would be my year of victory. I had canceled so many trips that we were going to go off and have a sunny holiday. We'd never done that. Ken and I went to a resort in Costa Rica in February, and I went with my wig. But I decided if I was going to be in Costa Rica, I was going to zip line. But then I was terrified of losing my wig. So, I was all dolled up looking what I thought was great every day at the breakfast table with the same people. And that day I showed up without a wig, and you could see the stares, because who is this lady? But I was going to go on that day trip without it. And we went to hot springs, and how liberating. Oh my gosh, I didn't have to worry about I had this short little curly stubble, but I was under the fountain and enjoying the hot springs, and had a blast that day. And then in April, we went to Israel. Thank God for the timing there. We had booked for the spring of 2020, and it was canceled because of pandemic. We found out that the credit expired. We didn't know that. So we booked that trip quickly and hopped off to Israel. And that was the first time I went without wigs. and decided it would be a group of people I didn't know. Got to the Toronto airport, and the first woman said, you look different. And I realized, oh, I did know her. I had met her. Yeah, I look different. I went through chemo. So the whole group knew, okay. But I got baptized in the Jordan River by a pastor named John. So I can say I was baptized in the Jordan River by John. He was a Baptist, John the Baptist. And I had no hair concerns. You know, today if I went, I'd be worried because that was first thing in the morning. I'd be worried about getting my hair coiffed because we were right on the bus and gone again. No, I had curly. There was a real freedom in that. I part of me wishes I had been able to keep that. That was rather liberating.
This is like a study for anybody that gets a diagnosis and they're facing this and they're going, oh my goodness, I have so many questions. I don't know what I'm facing. There's unknown, as you said. I don't know what I should do. What should I expect? How do I plan? You've given it to them all right here.
I can tell you the number of women that have reached out to me since, because I didn't hide it and bury it. And I'm tired of being told I was brave. You're so brave. You know what? I'm not brave. I'm no different, no braver than any other woman out there. I was scared. But I have a God who can carry you, and I have a village, right? But the number of women that I'm going for a mammogram, I haven't been in a while. You've encouraged me to do that. Yeah, you need to. Should I do my pap? Yeah, you know what? Do it. And two women that got called back for ultrasounds. Why? What should I expect there? Another one called back for a biopsy. And they're scared. But I'm honored that people are not afraid to reach out and to ask. And do I have the answers? No, I only have my story. I have what I've learned, what worked for me, what I went through. That's all I have to share. But there is a scripture that says, comfort as you have been comforted.
Yeah.
So our journeys are not for naught. They're for a purpose. They're to teach us something, but they're also to benefit others. I believe I have such new empathy for people receiving a diagnosis, being on the patient side. I was always a giver. I was rehab. I gave care to people. Oh my gosh, receiving a curt receptionist on the phone, or somebody that lacks that empathy, how crushing that can be, and how you feel like a thing or a diagnosis versus a human being. Feeling vulnerable, feeling scared, all of those things, feeling like you have to succumb and believe and obey everything that you're told, and not realizing that no, you can make some choices for yourself, and sometimes you get a bit of a pushback from the medical community, and good, well-meaning friends. Oh my gosh, in the early days, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. Oh my gosh, when all you want to do is grieve. All you want is a hug. And I'm so sorry you're going through this. What can I do? Can I pray for you? You don't want to hear, you should have had a mastectomy. Don't you know that you had a mastectomy? You should be juicing. You should be, whatever. And I think I remember saying to one, can I just cry? Can you stop? Can you just listen? I remember saying once, because it was really early. I was really emotional. And anybody can do that for anybody. we can listen
Mhm.
and we can just put an arm around somebody because we can't fix it. But we can listen and we can love and we can care.
Powerful words, Kim. Powerful words for, doesn't matter if you're going through cancer or if you're going through any kind of, a disability, a financial, whatever people are facing out there, whatever their story is that they're going through, those are things that we can do to be an answer to a prayer.
Kim, I want to thank you for when you would send out the emails, and the prayer direction was so clear, and your prayer need was so clear. You weren't afraid to say what we should be petitioning the Father for, and that just really encouraged, I know, me when I would get it, because then I would know how to direct the prayers and stuff. And for you personally, because like Bonnie said, we probably all have been touched by cancer somehow, somewhere, either ourselves or journeying with somebody. And it's so personal. It's so different for so many people, and choices are different. And I loved partnering up with your choice, your personal choice of how you were going to fight it. And I loved your zero prayer, because then it was like, yes, that's what we'll focus in on. So thank you. I really appreciated the direction.
You often don't have the strength to pray for yourself. It's strange. But often when you're low, there are more utterances. You need other people lifting you up.
Kim, thank you for sharing this difficult story as you've walked through breast cancer. We know that it is going to be a powerful resource for others who might be facing this same diagnosis. If you have questions or concerns for Kim or for us, you can write us at recoveringyourvoice@gmail.com. But until next time, we encourage you to keep sharing your story.
Yes.
Oh, it's a quiet feel today.
Yes.
That it was just me, but it is a quiet feel. That it was just my body making me remember I'm older. But apparently,
Yeah.
you doing good, Kim?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
We know what it feels like to be on the other side of the camera, girl.
Yeah, I'm a little
Like you're being
nervous.
interviewed.
We've all been there. We don't ask
The
our
Lord-
guests to do something that we haven't done yet.
Okay.
That's what God told us. You can't ask your guests to do what you're not willing to do. So we had to take it first.
All right. So I'm hoping you can steer things or stop me or clean up on aisle 7.
That's your girl right there in the pink, okay? For the cleanup in aisle 7, that's your girl. So, it's lovely. Yes.
There she is.
Thanks, Gord. Not Gord? Is it Gord?
Yeah.
Thanks, Gord.
Baby Gorby rescued me again.
Thank you, Gord.
Yes.
Thank you, son. Again. Ah.
So anyway, now I feel like I'm going down a bunny trail.
I'm not doing too well. Okay, I'll start that again.
I think I'm not sure now where exactly. I think it's a little bit later. Hold that thought. I'm sorry. I have been so I should have just read a journal because I have been back and forward and back and forward. I apologize.
And we're done.